welcome back to Redmond Reviews. I'm Chris Garlock, the managing editor at the American Go e-Journal, and with me once again, of course, Michael Redmond, 9-Down Professional. Michael, welcome back.
Hi, Chris.
All right, so we've got our second AlphaGo versus AlphaGo game. You said that our last one was was the simpler one.
It was one of the simpler ones. Yeah, this is a bit more exciting.
So we should really strap in for this one and fasten our seatbelts.
Yeah.
Okay.
All sort of stuff happens.
Cool. All right.
And again, as always, it starts simple with for. And you know, I sort of question the fact that AlphaGo is still playing star points when, as we'll see in this series, we'll see that AlphaGo attaches this huge value to the through 3-point. So why doesn't it play more 3 points?
Right.
And one thing I'm thinking that could be the reason is that it has a bias, because the original version of AlphaGo started with human data, and so almost all of it would be playing star points and 3-4 points. And so there's this huge bias that maybe has not disappeared. So there's this issue with hidden bias that comes from human data, which is a big problem with AI in general. Like you never know, and once it's processed by the AI, it sort of disappears. So you never know where it came from, but the bias is still there. It's just hidden.
It's the ghost in the machine.
Yeah, so it's no problem with AlphaGo, because we don't really know what is better. But like if it's something that has a direct effect on our real lives, it could be a problem, I think.
Like a plane, or
they use AIs in the courtroom to say if someone's is likely to repeat a crime.
Right.
And the AI uses some algorithm. It's a deep learning AI that taught itself to decide that kind of thing, and we don't really know where all the data came from. So that could be a problem.
It's getting very sci-fi. I like it.
Oh yeah. Well, I as I see how AlphaGo can quickly surpass human players, I'm sort of getting worried about AI in general, because it's so quickly happening.
Right.
And so we have black playing the sun and say, this is actually white playing these approach moves and just leaving them like this is exactly the same as what Go Sagan was telling us to do. Like there's many points in where I see Go Sagan coming out in AlphaGo's play. Go Sagan was a very flexible player. And he would change the status of stones. He wouldn't be attached to this Kakari he's played in the upper right corner. He would be completely willing to throw it away, to sacrifice that stone. And so that's something that's true of all professionals to an extent, but it was more true of Go Sagan. And it's more true of AlphaGo also, because AlphaGo also is very flexible. It's always looking at the whole board position, which is something also that Go Sagan was talking about all the time. And so it's something that I'm seeing a lot. I'm seeing the way that AlphaGo uses those shoulder hits that were so prominent in the Master series. It still plays them. We haven't seen them yet in this series, but it still plays them. It uses them slightly differently, and that it sometimes plays away. And so it doesn't always play the same sequences that it played in the Master series. And it's starting to look a bit like Go Sagan too in that. And the way it handles that. So we'll get to that in future games.
That's very cool.
Now this peep that white played here, is actually a move that showed up twice in the Master series. And it was in one of my video commentaries. I forget which number it was, but it was in one of my video commentaries. But after Black connects, in those games, Master was playing something on the left side of the board. It was playing in this case, it would be something on the lower side of the board. It would be playing away after playing this peep. So the sole purpose of this peep is maybe to get some extra influence towards the center of the board, or towards the left part of the board. But the human way of using this peep is actually to play the sliding move here. And so this is a point again where I'm starting to think that AlphaGo is actually coming up with a new way to play, which is in this case happens to be closer to the human way. So it's still working with moves it was playing in the Master version, but it's using them slightly differently. So it's evolving. And this is sort of disturbing when we don't really know why it was playing the moves in the first place. And so there's a move that the master version, a reason that the master version had to play this move, which is probably slightly different than it does, than the reason it plays it now, because it's evolved and it's improved on, you might assume. Now, if black answers here, I'm not really sure where the position of that extension should be, but when white plays an extension, it's arguable that that marked exchange there is a good exchange for white, because it's not going to be forcing later, and it does give white something extra towards the center of the board. So that's the idea here. So what you could say even that black has a slightly over-concentrated shape on the right side, because black has that connection where black is already connected with the stone at the 3-3 point.
Well, it's just really fascinating because just thinking of my own experience, you know, if you try to play those kinds of moves, they're often seen as sort of Kakashi and you know don't really are sort of criticized. But that's I like it actually. I think it does.
Yeah, this local sequence here with the peep and the slide is something that has been done in human games. It's a white is sort of hoping that black will play here, and white is saying that maybe black has an over-concentrated shape.
Right.
The weakness of this is that it reduces white's play to it reduces the value of the 3-3 point. So black is not going to play the 3-3 point in the near future, and so by reducing the value of the 3-3 point, it actually makes this sliding move at Q2. The sliding move on the second line is slightly less effective than it would usually be. And so there's a trade there. There's a trade-off. And black plays now black is trying to set up an attack. So this is actually a good example of how you attack this white stone. Black starts with this attachment here in the upper corner, and if white extends, then black's going to pincer. This is the ideal pincer because it's also an extension on the upper side. So as white runs away, we have a heavy white group, and black is attacking while surrounding the upper side. And this white group is going to make it relatively easy for black to surround the right side too. So this is the ideal variation for black. And it's an example of how black should be trying to attack white. So it's something that human players can pick up. Amateur players can learn from that too, I think. What you might see in a lot of professional games is white jumping away like this. And black will continue in the upper right corner. And white will be trying to attack on the upper side. But of course, my feeling is that maybe this is good for black, because black does have a splendid position on the upper right corner, And the fight on the upper side is about even. I wouldn't say that white has that much potential to attack. So it's the upper side fight is still fightable for black. And so I was really impressed by this move that AlphaGo played. But actually, I've seen Chochkun play this move. And it was about 10 years ago. About 10 years ago. There's a very interesting logic to this move. Like, depending on how black answers it, sometimes white will be able to live in the corner. Like if black plays the honey on top, white's going to be able to live in the corner. So I'll show you that variation. This is already a live shape, so white can play away. And so although black has a very solid thickness in the upper right area, white has the catch. White has the territory in the corner, and white was able to take Sente. So white is sort of controlling the lower left. Well, most of the lower left part of the board it's right. More white than it is black. So black is sort of confined to the upper right area, and the corner is scooped out. So I don't really know who's going to win this game, but there's some reason that white has maybe profited from it. Well, what if black plays the Sarari? Now, this is a move. This shape here in the upper right corner is going to show up a few times in the 50-game series. So we're going to see a game where black plays this Sarari too. When black plays this Sarari, an extension down to the second line, it's going to be very difficult for white to live in the corner. There's less room for white to live in the corner, but it has less effect on white on the outside. So now white's going to play this move, which is similar to that variation I was showing before. Let's just go back a few moves where white plays here now. It's very similar to this variation. Only in this case, white has a little extra potential in the corner, and that black stone on the second line is not really attacking white on the upper side. And so it's as if white has gotten a little bit of potential in the corner for free almost, because that play on the second line for black is not really influencing the fight that's going to happen on the upper side. So maybe something like this could happen, in which case now it really looks like white is taking the offensive on the upper side. And maybe that marked move there is a bit slack in this case. And so this is the idea behind what white did. And so what black did, we've looked at black playing Sagari to the second line. We've looked at black playing the Hane on top. So what black did in the actual game was underneath. And compared to black playing on the top at that mark point, this gives white a little less room in the corner, but it also affects the upper side. So it's a kind of a compromise. So if we're talking about the corner, if white now tries to live, white has slightly less territory. So actually white doesn't have enough room to live with Sente, but has to put this extra stone in. And so that's a one move difference on the outside. So this is good for black. And white's not going to do that because it's good for black. So since trying to live in the corner is a bit cramped, white extends one more. Now this is a very loose connection. It's not really connected to the cornerstone. So naturally black wants to try to cut that off. But there's a kind of a trap there, because if black plays this move, this is the strongest move. It's trying to cut off the cornerstone and give white as few forcing moves from the right side as possible. The drawback is that white can push through here and play the peep here, which is a double threat now. White's threatening to cut on the second line in both places. Black has to connect this side. And in this variation, we can see that black can actually crawl a lot on the second line to capture the corner white stones. The corner white group is dead already, but black is probably crawling too much in this case.
So painful, ow.
And of course, white can still, although white's dead in the corner, white can still make a big eye there. And so there's potential for white to create some trouble on the right side of the board, which could have an effect on the upper right corner. So this is looking good for white. And so black plays this way. Now with this move, black is just going after the cornerstone, making a little sacrifice of one stone here, but cutting off the cornerstone. And now black tries to attack white on the right side, and white plays away. Now this is really, it's difficult for a human player to play away at this point, because there's so much stuff happening on the upper side and the right side. But this is really where I feel sort of overawed by the way that AlphaGo can do this, because as I look at it, it's a very effective move. I'm looking just at the right side. If black tries to kill that white group there, black's gonna, that move that black plays to try to kill it, like a move like this, sure. This move is going to become a wasted move. There's a lot of potential for it to become a wasted move, because covering on the second line here is a tesuji that white's going to be using in almost all of the variations that stem from this. And in this case, white can actually play this connection here when black plays the Atari on the right side, and white gets this kind of an exchange here. And we can see that move that black played on the fourth line to start this whole thing has sort of become a wasted move. It's not really an important move. So the exchange for that move and this white move was a huge gain for white. And so instead of doing this sequence immediately, white's waiting for black to spend one move there to try to kill the white group. So playing here is not really that, like when white plays here, if black plays here, then black can capture maybe the whole side. But actually, there's still a lot of bad aji there. Like white can this time white can play this way. And we have this sequence here, which is not going to happen immediately probably, but we can see that there's going to be a ko here for white to make a life. So there's this kind of stuff that can still happen, and it's after white has played that forcing move on the upper side. So actually what white will do is, after this exchange, white will probably start doing stuff on the upper side and save that sequence that makes a ko on the right side for some later point in the game. And so it ends up with black will be, although that looks like there's a lot of white stones dying within black's right side, black actually needs one more move to finish them off. And so it's going to be actually a lot of black stones played inside there also, and it's not so much of a waste for white. Like it's as if black has played all of the jumps on the fourth line, and then white's played some moves inside maybe, but white's getting the rest of the board in the meanwhile. And so that's white's plan.
Well, it's amazing because black's played all of these moves on the right side, and yet, as you've shown, it's not even necessarily all his territory.
It's not territory yet. Like at this point, it's not a good idea for white to try to break into it yet.
No,
but white's going to have that later. Yeah. So black at some point will have to put another stone on the fourth line to connect there.
He's already got a mess of stones. In fact, all of his stones, almost, except for one.
Almost all black stones are on the right side. And so it's a position where you get the feeling that black has played too many stones on the right side.
Yeah.
And so that's why black doesn't do that. Like now black's expanding on the upper side. And so that just shows how effective this move was, because this is a huge opening point. It's one of the biggest opening points. And dealing with the right side directly is not really very good for black. Like this is pushing here also it's the same story. Like white can still play this move. And if black, and again, there's still a lot of aji on the right side. Like white can still do this kind of stuff. And again, it's going to be a kind of a ko. This is also another ko that's going to be dangerous for black. But white might not do it quite yet. But at some point in the game, white's going to be able to do this.
Wow.
And so there's no way black can, and black just hates the idea of white playing this move, because this is going to be a very nice kikashi for white to play. So black starts with the upper side. Oh, sorry. Black starts with the upper side.
Right.
And white plays here anyway. This is just local tessuji that white's going to use in any case. And black takes it. At this point, white already has a lot of potential in the upper right corner, but it starts with this move. And so black has to, now that white is out into the center, black has to find a way to finish off the upper right corner. And a human player would be sort of tempted to play here, but I've decided that this is actually not very good. because white can actually still live in the corner. Like this kind of thing would live in the corner. White has a living shape, and black needs one more move to finish off those three stones that white has on the outside. So white's gaining a lot of territory in this variation. Mm. And so what black actually did is black took the one stone. So the fact that black did not push here, this would have a big effect on the upper side. So black really sort of wants to play this move. The fact that black could not play that, but had to play the ponnuki, it makes black's position on the upper side a bit low. Mm-hmm. And it's just another thing that makes me think that white's play here is being very, very effective. And so white plays once here, and again white plays away. And so white's group there is very, very difficult to kill. It's not going to be easy for black to kill that white group. But if we look at the rest of the board, white's controlling the whole lower left area. And so it's an example of how AlphaGo can play a very quickly paced game. And so black is playing these forcing moves to partly because white's already played on the left side, and also because black is trying to set up an attack against white's right side group. Mm. And so we can see that black, instead of chasing white, a weaker player would be trying to surround the white group maybe, mm-hmm. and there would be a tendency to chase white into black's upper side moyo. But if we assume that white lives, then the end result would be that there would be no black territory to speak of. So it's probably a good idea for black to be playing from the upper side to expand the upper side while putting pressure on white's right side group. And depending how this turns out, then there could be cases where black could then invade the lower side or the lower left area and still have enough territory in the upper side to win. And so this seems to be reasonable. But now black continues with this. This attachment here sort of sets the mood of the game, because black is sacrificing stuff on the left side of the board, giving white some extra territory here. There's still a little potential in the lower left corner, but it's becoming less attractive for black. So there's a big possibility now that the whole left side, including lower left corner, could easily become white territory. So there's a potential loss there for black.
You're talking about maybe a 3-3 or maybe even an attachment.
The attachment probably won't work, but there's still some potential for jumping in the 3-3 point.
Okay.
And whether that's going to live or die, it's hard to say. It sort of depends on what's happening in the area. It would be interesting to see what happens if black invaded right now, for instance, because white would have to choose between trying to kill it and allowing it to live with the coal or something.
Just take the outside.
But black is black is playing these moves from the outside is making that fight in the lower left corner more and more difficult for black, and so it becomes slightly less likely that black's actually going to do that. And so the focus of the game for the time being is going to be on the right side of the board, where black is going to he's going for the kill here. And so we see black going for a kill here, almost, or at least a powerful attack in the center, because we can see that black has split white into two groups. Actually, white has potential to live on the right side, so black has to play this stone to take away 9. And white jumps out once. And this is a part of the next white move really confused me, because naturally, if I was playing with white, I would be thinking of nothing but how to live with this group on the right side, right?
That's what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
And that's not what AlphaGo did. Okay, so I would play here.
Sure.
Okay, variation number 1. Oh, I'll leave that one to last. Variation number 1. Black plays here, surrounding white. Looks like white's dead, but it's not, because white can make an eye here, and this is a forcing move. And this is the move that gives white a living shape. It hits the weak point and goes by that mark black. This is an eye there in the center, so this is a living shape for white. The fun part comes when black tries to take away the eye. This turns into a ladder. And I think that's good enough. You want me to go further? No.
No, we got it. That's
a ladder. It almost hits those black stones up there, but white can push through on the second line. Yeah. And so
that's pretty.
The beauty of the SDF file thing is that you can do it for yourself if you want to check that.
Or you can just leave Michael.
So variation number 2, black plays here to try to take away that potential. But actually, white can leave this, and black's stones in the center are very weak. Black probably has to run away like this. After which, again, it's still a Tesuji that gives white good shape here. And it's putting black in Damizumari. And white finally takes the 1 stone. This whole sequence has given white a very solid shape in the center of the board. And again, white does have that eye with Sente on the right side. And so I think it's going to be easy for white to live with this group. And so I was thinking, well, what's AlphaGo doing?
Easy is not the word that occurred to me, but okay.
Okay. So this lives almost immediately. I thought that this is going to be relatively easy for white. Then I came up with this move. This is, compared to this move, this is much better Suji. With this move, black can stop white from making an eye there in the center. White gets some forcing moves maybe, but in this case, I'm not really sure what would happen. This is a huge Sumego problem, and there's a lot of space there.
It's huge.
I'm going to say I don't know.
That's your answer, so you don't know?
I sort of think that maybe it could actually be dying, but I would still want to try this with white, even if it's dangerous.
I mean, yeah, sure.
White does have that Sente on the right side, and I would have the feeling that maybe I could pull this off, but it is a very dangerous way for white to play. So, you know,
it seems very un-AlphaGo like, can I just say?
Right. Well, that's not.
This is not simplifying anything.
Well, I don't think that's the AlphaGo thing. I think it was just the fact that when it played with human players, it got good percentages so quickly that it started simplifying the game. I don't think simplifying the game is AlphaGo's thing. It's definitely not is anymore. And it could be all those complicated game positions that Franhui was feeding to AlphaGo.
Thank you, Franhui.
Yeah, but otherwise, maybe it's just that AlphaGo was simplifying in those particular games because it was winning already. So AlphaGo plays this Kosumi. And I was telling you, white has an eye, one eye there on the right side. White can make an eye in Sente. By playing this Kosumi, white loses half of that eye. Like now the eye, white needs one move now to make that eye.
Yeah.
So it's a self-defeating exchange. So what is AlphaGo doing here?
I don't know. That's odd.
I got an answer for that, but
it's good.
Really it takes the whole game basically for me to see this move coming to fruition.
All right, so this is going to be my first one of this one, but thank you for working this out for us, Michael.
So white is setting up to throw away this right side group. White is setting up to sacrifice that group.
Aha.
And I think what the story that I would put to this is that at this point in the game, maybe AlphaGo thinks it has a possibility to live, but actually the value of living on the right side is comparable maybe to the value of what happened in the actual game in which white trashed the whole upper side black territory. We'll see white just the whole upper side is going to disappear in the actual game while black takes the right side. And so maybe it's about an equal value to do one of those two things. And by playing here and exchanging with this, white is just getting a little bit extra potential on the right side by putting black in bad shape there.
Right.
And that Damismari is going to come into play much later in the game. It's going to be about 100 moves or something. Or actually later than that. And we're going to see this have a very important, make a big difference in the game. So it's not going to happen for a long time in this game, but eventually there's going to be some extra potential there on the right side, which is going to pay out for white. So AlphaGo has added that extra potential there, and now AlphaGo feels justified in sacrificing the whole right side. Because I think without this exchange, maybe it was sort of leaning towards trying to save the group, but it wasn't really sure maybe. I'm not sure that it can save the group. I was showing you that variation where I can't give you an answer.
Sure.
And so maybe AlphaGo was sort of at the same point and decided that this exchange would make it more valuable for white to sacrifice the group and take profit on the upper side. So with no more ado, I'll show you what happened. White's just sacrificing that whole right side group. And at this point, it becomes apparent that black is very thin in the center of the board.
Yeah.
And you know, that sort of happened sort of suddenly to me. Even, I'm a professional player. I should be able to see things happening, but it looked like white was just sort of floating around here. But
it's a race of territory.
White has a few forcing moves against black still, like points like this and this are sort of forcing moves that white can use at some point.
Right.
And so that flimsy shape that white has is actually not as flimsy as it seems. And black stones in the center are sort of surrounded by a lot of white stones. White has the control of the whole area. And so that potential that white is getting is actually pretty big. So white has completely cut black off here, and we can see that the white group is gradually getting stronger. Black has no eye shape yet, and the upper side at this point is reduced fairly significantly. Actually, I would be tempted to play here with black to surround the upper side. Still, it's only a fourth line territory, so it's reduced to something like a block of 15 points there. where you were thinking that maybe that black territory was spreading out into the center of the board.
Yeah, and it feels very, capturing that white group feels sort of unsatisfactory, right? I mean, it's big.
Well, yeah, black has a lot of territory. Black probably has something in the vicinity of about 70 points of territory now.
Sure.
But white also, white will probably play here. White has huge potential in the lower left area of the board. And again, it's going to be really difficult for me to call this and say who's going to win.
Sure.
But I can see how it can work for white. So in the game, black played. It didn't play that way, but played another move to strengthen the center. So apparently, black decided that this group is just too weak for it to work. And again, while I have good feelings about a lot of the white moves, and it looks sort of like black is being pushed around. Again, this is a game that's going to be very, very close throughout, and so the game is going to be wobbling about, and black is, as we can see, black is going to be having a lead in territory throughout most of the game, and it's a question of how much white can catch up while attacking black in the center of the board here, and I would say the game is undecided throughout most of the end game. So there's just points of the game where it's going to be very difficult for me to even give you numbers, because almost everything on the board, even including that white territory in the lower left, is going to be undecided whether that's really territory or not, up to a certain point, and then suddenly everything will sort of crystallize. And right now we're seeing the upper side changing. At this point, black can still escape, but those black stones in the upper left corner are being put under pressure, and black's territory there is much smaller than it was before. Black is looking at some weakness in white's connection here, and also trying to make some eye space for the center group. So white plays here. With this move, black is connected. I put in this variation here because some players would want to play this move, which, depending on what happens outside, it would leave some potential for white to do stuff like this. Like, this isn't going to work yet, but it could with a few extra stones for white on the outside. So I just wanted to show this safe way that black can use to connect up. Like this is the most secure way that black can use to connect up. Nice. So at this point, it's important to be able to say that black is 100% connected at this point.
Right.
So white plays here. And already white is sort of eyeing the right side of the board. You probably don't notice it yet, but you're going to see stuff happening on the right side of the board.
Yeah, I see like a peep and
There's a peep here. It's troublesome. Yeah. And of course, white is attacking black in the center. Black still does not have eye shape, so black plays here. A very natural move. And with this move, I'm starting to feel that the lower left corner is a white territory.
Right.
So that's the meaning. And of course, white is also looking at the shape black has on the right of that. The large knight's move is not a complete connection. So black covered. And I don't like this move. I would say that this is a move that I would be willing to say it's wrong. So really? I don't like this move because it's not creating eye shape for black. It's not surrounding any area. And so it's giving white a lot of opportunity to continue to correct, to continue to attack, that is.
Okay.
And also it doesn't have any effect on white on the left side. That's an area that white is protected already with this.
Right, it's finished.
And so it's a finished area. I would play here. Black needs to put one stone down. Yeah. But this move actually, it refutes any attack that it refutes the weakness that white was looking at in the large knight's move. So for the time being, that shoulder hit stone on the left there is now connected to black's group in the center. And with this knight's move, black erases, like for instance, if white plays here, black can just capture that stone with a ladder. And that's because of the stone black played on the right there.
Right.
So I would play here, and I would say that I still think that maybe with all that territory on the right side of the board, I would feel I have a chance to win with black. But there's a lot of stuff that I don't understand that's going to happen from now on, so I can't really say. So white plays here. White's capturing the 3 stones. As we will see later in the game, there's still a lot of aji there, and black can actually jump into the corner. So we'll look at that as it happens. A lot of the meaning of this kosumi is, while taking those 3 stones on the upper side, capturing those 3 stones, it strengthens white's group as a whole. So it's there's a defensive meaning to that move also. So black plays here. This is continuing from, I'll mark that stone. It's continuing from this move. This move was looking at that.
Right.
It's the tesuji here. It's the shape. And so white plays here. And yeah, black counters to this side. We can see a ko developing. So this ko at the mark point is a ko that black is aiming to do at some point. But actually, when black does play that ko, let's see, what variation did I put in? Oh yeah, that we'll talk about that later. When black does that ko in the mark point, white will take the stone, and white will finish the ko by taking another stone in the center. That ko actually is, locally, it's a very big loss for black. So black has to be very careful of the timing of when black starts this ko.
Mm.
There's also the fact that with a dead white group on the right side of the board, and a weak black group that has to live in the center of the board, there's a tendency throughout the game from now on for white to have more ko threats than black.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because white has a group that's already dead, so white can use ko threats on that group.
Sure.
And black has a group that has to live, so white can use ko threats against that group also. And when black does start the ko, it's going to be a very big ko. So you can't just use mundane ko threats. So now black plays a very, very tight move. Like if a human player played this move, just because of the fact that human players would be playing with a feeling that they were ahead maybe, but would not completely have counted out the game at this point. It's still less than 100 moves into the game. There's something like 150 to 200 moves left. And so the human player would not have worked out the end game. But if you see a human player play this move, therefore, you get the feeling that that player feels that he's ahead because he's playing a very safe-looking move.
Sure.
So the black player would be feeling that he has a sufficient margin that he can play a safe move like this. Just because we're uncertain of how exactly it will turn out. Our feeling that we have, we wouldn't play this move if we thought it was a close game, because then we would think that we couldn't afford to play a move like this.
Right. It'd be too slow.
And so that's one way we can reason it out. I think with AlphaGo, it does have to do with those mark points that white can be looking at to make trouble.
Yep. And
it probably has something to do with the ko I was talking about just now, at that mark point on the upper side, because black at some point does want to start that ko, but will need to get rid of the ko threats on the right side. So in part, this move here is reducing the number of white ko threats on the right side. So that could be something that AlphaGo is adding to the equation, you might say.
Mm-hmm. But couldn't white just? I mean, it doesn't even have to fight the ko. White could just connect now. Because it's moved by.
Even if white connects, you're talking about white connecting. Let's just put a variation. Connecting here, right? That still doesn't get rid of this cut.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so white really wants black to. Ideally, white would want black to start the ko prematurely and be able to capture those stones. Like if black plays the ko variation, then that will solve white's problems in the center too, because white will be able to finish the ko connecting the center. So that's the idea.
Okay.
And so connecting there would be it's almost a wasted move for white.
Okay.
It's not very efficient. So white goes into the corner. This is also, as far as territory is concerned, it's not the biggest move on the board. Like something towards the left side, towards the center of the lower side, that is, would be bigger. But again, white's still trying to make something of the potential on the right side. So this is sort of reviving the potential there that I was seeing on the right side with those marked points. making those moves valid co-threats at least, and making black a bit uneasy about stuff that could happen on the right side. And so black jumps into the corner. Now this is really, it's a very difficult reading problem here in the upper left corner, but I think this move actually works. And it's partly because black has that ko that I was talking about here. So there's this ko that's sort of part of the equation when black jumps in there. So white can't really afford to let this stone connect up with the black stones on the right, because that will make the ko much more effective, because without this move, like in this position, it looks like even the semi-eye on the upper side is a bit, it doesn't look so advantageous for black.
Right.
I mean, the semi-eye that happens after black cuts in the ko.
Right.
But if black can connect up with this cornerstone, then of course the semi-eye will be an easy win for black. So there's a connection there to the ko that black might be starting at some point. And of course, if black connects this way, black's already going to get a living shape. This is just a living shape.
Yep.
So white break covered. And now we see that white stones also do not have a completely safe connection. So white has to pull back. And now this stone here, it's threatening to connect up again. White can actually, locally, white can kill this group. Like black can connect, and white actually has to go back there. What I was just talking about here. At this point, any semi-eye that happens on the upper side will be good for black now. So this is the point where white would want to be putting a stone in here.
Okay.
But now I found a variation where black can actually live in the corner. Like this is locally dead, but black can use this move and has this connection on the first line there. So black connects up to the right side. So that's another.
You can clearly tell that AlphaGo is playing AlphaGo because it's just got. I mean, do we know anything about the time? I mean, how fast is this being played?
I think they said they didn't really say. I think they said something like that it was the full time limit.
Okay, and so it's not
a fast game.
Okay.
I was assuming that.
I feel a little better.
You feel better? I was assuming that it meant that it was the same as the games it was playing against humans, which would be 3 hours for each player. But actually, I think I heard maybe Fan Hui say, I don't really feel comfortable quoting him because I might be wrong, but I think I heard him saying that it was actually longer than that.
Okay.
So it could be a very long game.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't want to get Fan Hui into trouble, but I think I might have heard him say that. So it's at least a 3-hour game because they were saying that it was a full time limit, and I was taking that to mean that it was the same as the games it was playing against.
What is it? They're not just reading all this stuff out at lightning speed. Yes.
Well, it's amazing reading.
Right.
And that, that's going to highlight all of these AlphaGo games. All of the games, what we would call the reading out of positions, which is maybe something a bit different when an AI is doing it. Maybe it's a different. I don't think that Go playing AIs like AlphaGo are actually reading out the local position the same way a human would be.
What do you mean?
Well, look, it's looking at the whole board position as a single problem. So it's not necessarily finding a local result, which is a ko or a life or a death, and judging just from that. Okay. What a human player would do, as I was just doing now, is a human player would look at the upper right corner and say, white can kill it this way, but then this happens. Right. And everything is resolved locally. In my reading, I can get to a certain point where I say, locally, this is a success for black.
Right. And can I just ask you, when you worked in that and you found that sequence for black to live, roughly how long did that take you?
I don't remember. It's once you look at it and you're assuming that there must be some good move. I'm starting out with a lot of information here. I'm starting out with the game sequence.
Right.
And the fact that white backed off here indicates that white saw something. So that's a huge hint that I have. And then it's relatively easy for me to find that sequence. I don't know. Maybe it took a few minutes.
Okay.
I just don't remember. And I've lost my.
Well, we're just looking at what happens next with the Looks like
I was
white.
talking about AIs in general, yeah. And so the AI AlphaGo is probably looking at the whole board position, and so it would be looking at moves like playing away, and all sorts of stuff. And its choice of moves is basically it's choosing moves that look good. So it's choosing moves generally that are good shape and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a very good judgment of good shape, and it's very effective. And so I don't really know if it has a conscious awareness that this is a Tsumego problem. It's a sort of
a deep philosophical question, Mr. Redmond.
Right. Yeah. Like when I look at it, I'm really thinking of these black stones in the corner as living or dying.
Right.
And when I'm looking at this position in the upper left, that's a very important point for me. It's the one thing that I'm interested in.
Right.
Because for the time being, as that was happening, the rest of the board was sort of irrelevant. It wasn't irrelevant, but it was irrelevant to what the players were actually doing in that part of the board. And so it's something that interests me, but I don't fully understand it, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Why do I get the sneaking suspicion that you actually enjoy things that you don't fully understand?
It makes it so much more interesting. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so again, we're the focus of the game is back to the center area. This is an interesting move that white played. Really just trying to get into that space close to the black wall there. If white is sort of threatening to jump up to the 5th line maybe, or something like that, just to reduce black's eye space. And because white is sort of surrounding black from all sides, black really needs to keep that space. So if white had done something, for instance, more directly into that space, then we would be seeing black probably sliding around to the lower side and then creating a different space on the lower side of the board.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a completely different story. But since white has started with the lower side, now black has to protect that space close to black's wall. So black plays one forcing move. And this is sort of forcing because not only is black trying to connect up to the right side, we have to remember that that white group in the center is not 100% safe yet.
Yeah.
So black is threatening to cut there in the center. And so now black is making some space, and white finishes off the lower side. So this is, again, I think I said something like this in the first game too. But this is a point in the game where I would be sort of expecting the game to calm down a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's just so you can sort of start to count things. You know, this is dead. This is territory. Right. I mean,
like I'm looking at the lower left area. I'm thinking maybe that's about 40 points.
That's right. Okay, that was my count.
And so white has something less than 20 points on the upper side, and something around 10 points in the lower right corner. So I'd be saying that white has more than 60 points. Black needs around 70 points to win the game, or make it close anyway. Let's see, how big is the upper right area? And I would have to count that. And it's something in the 60s.
It's 60.
And so black has some territory in the center of the board now, and some territory in the upper right corner, upper left corner. And white has some potential territory to take those black 3 stones on the left side. And so it looks pretty close. Like there's a lot of variables that can change very easily. But it looks like it still depends on whether white's lower left area stays below the 40-point level, or if it gets bigger than that. Like there's still some area for white to expand on the lower side. And so now black plays this probe. Actually, locally this is a bit late because white can kill it fairly easily.
Sure.
But I think it's making some potential for black to still play some forcing moves. And I'm going to show you that as it happens. But what really is exciting is that white plays away.
Yes.
And so for a while here, we have a position where black seems to be able to live in the lower left corner. And that would be something like 30-point move. But for the time being, white is played a threatening move on the right side. And black just swallows it up. So this is what we would call mochikomi. White is playing a move within black's territory and expanding the black territory. So it seems to be a very bad move.
Yeah.
What white is looking at is white has all this aji here, like this kind of thing, which is not going to work yet. Like white has half an eye in the upper part of his group and half an eye in the lower part of his group. So there's 2 half eyes that white has. White cannot create a living shape. That adds up to 1 eye, yeah. And white's going to lose the same eye with black on the outside. It's actually going to take a lot of work just to kill that black group, to take away its eyes. And so locally, this is just not, it doesn't look like it's going to work for white. But actually, so white is going to try to combine that aji there that white has with an attack on black in the center. So this is making the attack on the center potentially much more effective. And it's one of the reasons that both players are leaving in the lower left corner, because once white has played this move inside black's territory, not only has white lost some territory with this exchange, also the position has become much more volatile, and that there's a lot of danger here for black. If white does get some extra stones in the vicinity, that will make a big problem for black on the right side of the board. And so white's trying to sort of conjure that up by making a big attack on black's center group. So that's what black has to be careful of. And that's the reason I'm going to be giving for black to be not playing in the lower left corner. The lower left corner is still a position where it looks like black can live if black plays first. But black is playing this move, which is showing that black can connect up at A, for one thing. We can see that it's reinforcing black's group on the right side of the board. And it's reinforcing black's group on the right side, as well as handing out a lifeline or a connection to black's group in the center. So this is a defensive move. It also happens to reduce white's potential on the lower side. So it's worthwhile in that way also. And so now white kills the lower left corner. In this position, when you have this big wall surrounding your territory, actually a mistake that a lot of Q players make is they continue playing on the 3rd line, and they allow the opponent to live by playing on the 2nd line. But when you try to kill these groups in the corner, this 3-3-point invasion in the corner, at some point you have to sort of dive in at the 2nd line. So this is the way white kills it. And this is a dead shape in the corner. I put this variation in because I actually think that black should have played this way. Black, although it's dead, after black connects here, there's a difference, because if white, if white plays this move, which is a huge move, then black actually having this exchange in the corner in means that black can play here and here, and this is actually a threat against white. White has to protect here on the left side. So this full exchange that black played makes a difference. It just made, because we can see that if black cuts there, it's going to be a snapback and catching the 3 stones. So the fact that this is forcing is a huge move. It gives black extra eyes, and so this would be just good for black. Black would play here, and there'd be trouble on the upper side too, and it would be just one-sided, and this black is completely safe now. Maybe white's going to play, at this point, maybe white's going to play here, but that would cost a move, and then black would be able to play here, and again, the cut at A would be a threat against white. And again, black is pretty much alive now. It's not 100%, but black is much closer to a living shape, and we can see that black is gaining territory by sort of saving those 3 stones on the left. And so I like this for black. So I think that if black had played that way, my guess would be that this is looking promising for black. So I think black should have immediately played this exchange. In the game, black played this first. And this is going to change that exchange. Like if black does this now, then it's going to be relatively easy for white to kill the group. Like white has the option of killing this way. So there's different ways that white can kill it, and that's going to change the effect of what black does there. And so now black plays this move. Now this move, okay, black is still trying to reinforce the center group. And I'm probably saying that this exchange was premature because now black can't do that kind of stuff. And so, and with this move, now what's happening here is black is sort of threatening, still threatening white in the center. The whole center position there, there's that ko there, which is going to give white damizmari on the upper side. And I'll be showing you stuff that can happen there. So black plays here. This move, again, all of this stuff that's happening in the lower right area has to do with the fact that white has played that move inside black's territory, this move here. Inside black's territory, which has created a lot of potential for white there, but at the same time it has increased black's territory. So black is playing in a way that reduces the potential that white has with that stone. So black's reinforcing the right side area at the same time as protecting black's center stones and gaining some territory on the lower side. And there's actually one other meaning for the move, is that it's cutting white off. White's center group is cut off now from the lower side, and it means that the cut in the center, is the cut here, is going to be more effective.
Yeah.
So if white plays, this is the game move. White is sort of preventing the cut for the time being, and also fixing up white's shape there. Because, for instance, if white plays something like this, white has terrible shape because black can cut here and then play moves like this and squeeze like that. And we can see that this ko is a very serious ko for white now. So it's a very dangerous ko. And so white sort of has very bad shape there. And this move here not only is stopping black from cutting in the center, is fixing up white's shape. So all of these moves that are happening, they sort of have multi-purposes. And the value of these moves is changing subtly every time someone plays a move. So this is something that happens in professional games too, but it's very prominent in AlphaGo's games. And when everything is sort of intertwined.
Yeah, it's nothing.
So white plays here. Yeah. Again, it's still happening. White is cutting off black in the center. The black group in the center is not completely alive yet. White is also sort of trying to help white's group in the center. So black takes this time to cut in the center and put white under pressure. Black is also looking at some aji on the upper side. So we'll see that full coming out. Black is pushing through here. They're fighting the ko, playing all sorts of ko threats. We can see that the ko that black is fighting there has something to do with these moves that black is playing as ko threats, because black's setting up a double Atari. The problem is that when black is going to lose this ko, the whole black center group is liable to die. So black has to be very careful about the timing of this ko, because just capturing in the upper side or playing some random ko threat is not going to be good enough. Black has to play ko threats that have to do with the center fight. So white has this ko threat on the right side. Black is sort of running out of ko threats, and white has these ko threats that have to do with the right side. So white's play there on the right side is played out. And now white plays away from the ko. White actually doesn't take the ko. And what white is doing here is white is killing, for the time being, white is killing black center group. So it makes it impossible for black to play the ko. Black doesn't have any ko threat worthy of the center group. So black has to play to make life. And so now, again, white is still putting pressure on the center group, but at the same time is protecting white's group. You can see now white's group is saved, and white is threatening to cut off those 4 stones.
Right.
So black has sort of lost the option of playing this ko, because the cost of playing this ko is to lose the center group. So black has sort of lost that option, and black is forced to play this way, in which black will squeeze the marks of white stones to make some eye space. And so, okay, so this is the move that starts the final battle, because
something out of Tolkien. The final battle begins.
Yeah, because if we're assuming a peaceful endgame, this is the biggest move by far.
Sure.
And so white will just connect, and then everything becomes very peaceful. Like black can play this squeeze here, and white has to take it. So black's going to be alive. Like the center set is going to turn out something like this. And black has plenty of eyes.
Cool.
And we can see those 2 points in the lower right were interchangeable. I wrote it up in the SGF file commentary, but I think my decision was that this point it's pretty close before Komi. So white's going to win by about the Komi. So something like that. I actually made a calculation and wrote it down in the SGF commentary. So there's probably a number there. But it's pretty close on the board, I think. So that's not good enough for black. So at this point, black is taking an immediate loss by sort of forcing white to take those stones, because white has to save the center group. And this gives black the opportunity to try to kill the lower right corner. So that's going to be the final battle. So now black is just making his eye shape, or its eye shape. And this is the kind of move that AlphaGo plays, and I don't know what to think, because this looks like it's losing a co-threat.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. And I don't know what the reason for black playing. It could be a time gaining move if it's running out of time or something.
It's gotta be.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to say it that way. I'm not certain. But black's alive in the center here. And actually this exchange, it looked like white was losing co-threats also. But since all of these moves that black uses to answer white are forcing moves against white's center stones. And so white would have, if white played this as a co-threat, white would have to play this exchange all the way anyway. And so it's reasonable that white played that to settle his position here. And now white plays in the lower right corner. And I'm talking about co-threats because there's a ko that's going to start now. So this local tsumego here, they're playing correctly, of course. And it's a ko here. White starts. And just about any co-threat like that position I was showing you where black saved the 4 stones and allowed white to live in the corner, it was close on the board. So just about any co-threat is going to be good enough for white. If white loses the corner here, it's going to be 20-30 point loss, but the upper left corner is about the same size. So that trade will be good enough for white. So black has to answer those co-threats. Also, this co-threat in the lower left corner is also good enough. So both players have a multitude of co-threats. And like this co-threat, I could go through the co-fight 100 moves.
But we won't.
This is where it changed. Because if black had played here, that co-fight would have continued. Let's just go a bit into the variation. This would be locally in the lower right corner. This is a hanamiko for black. Like it's no loss for black, but a big loss for white, right?
Sure.
And so all of the co-threats throughout the board will be valid co-threats. And this co-fight will go on another 90 moves. And I did work it out, but I don't think I want to show people 100 moves or so of co-threats, because it's just, it turns out that I think that black is going to lose by 1 co-threat.
And I think you've got it in the file anyway, right?
I didn't. You want me to put it in the? I could put it in the file. It's
okay.
Easy. Yeah. So black finishes the ko. This finishes the ko, but it doesn't finish the problem, because now there's stuff that's happened on the right side. Finally, this comes into play. Well, it was coming into play already when white got all those forcing moves from the center, but now this is big trouble for black. And you know, that forcing move, it bothers me because it's potentially losing a co-threat. This forcing move black just played.
Right.
I don't know. It sort of bothers me because there's another ko that starts here. There's just going to be ko's continually. This is an interesting point because actually white could have connected without a ko. This move here, white could have played here. But you see, black does none of the throw-ins here. Black doesn't need to throw in any of these marked points. Some players would be tempted to put that throw-in right next to white A, but that actually increases white's liberties, because in this position, white has to connect all of those marked points. So white has to play all of those marked points, and that stone on the second, that white stone at A, is actually filling one of white's liberties. Because in this semi-eye, this is going to be a semi-eye between the white group on the right side and the black group in the lower right. And since white has a big eye in the corner,
right,
all of those liberties inside the semi-I are liberties that black has to fill. So white wants to keep the liberties open as much as possible. So that's the meaning of this move, which ignores the possibility to connect without a ko, but by connecting with a ko, white's creating an extra liberty there at the mark point. And so actually there's a 1 move difference there in the number of liberties. And black takes away white's eyes. Still, like if white had played at this point, white would have 2 eyes. So this is taking away white's eyes. And white has to take away black's eyes too, because otherwise, like if white played something like this, black would be able to force with this move and make 2 eyes. So that would be an easy win for black. So white takes away black's eyes. And they're still fighting the ko, but of course, it's the same story. Although the ko is much bigger now, that's just a bigger liability for black. So this ko threat in the upper left corner is still valid for white. And so they continue this ko for a bit, but black's going to run out of ko threats for that. So black plays here, and black's trying to extend liberties, right? Making a fairly big eye, but actually white's eye is slightly bigger. So since white has 4 stones before white captures them, we'll just take it this far. There's four black stones in there before white captures them. So that's five liberties there. And white will have 3 stones inside black's eye before black captures it. So that's just 3 liberties. So white has the bigger eye, and all of the inside liberties are liberties that black has to fill. And so this is still a lot of open points, making it difficult for most players to read out the semi-I. But it turns out it's a fairly close semi-I. So it's a 1-step ko. But when it becomes a direct ko, it's going to favor white. And we see, so black finishes the outside ko. This is basic theory. It's good to finish the outside ko so that black can extend his, connecting the inside ko at this point would fill one of black's liberties.
Sure.
So black wants to be fighting the inside ko.
Right.
You have to fill one of them because there's 2 kos, right? So now you're fighting this ko. At this point, it's a 1-step ko. So you would think that black has an advantage. Black has an advantageous 1-step ko.
Yeah.
But when the direct ko starts, all of these moves inside white's eye will become ko threats for white. And I'll show you how that could happen.
Okay.
White plays this ko threat. Now if black answers that, white takes the ko, and black has run out of ko threats. But you would think, oh, it's a 1-step ko, so why not play something like this on the outside, and then fight the ko? But it turns out when the direct ko starts, all of these moves are going to be ko threats for white. And black has ko threats inside the eye too, but since white's eye started out bigger, there's a slight difference there. And it turns out that everything else on the board is basically irrelevant. So I'm just doing open moves. It turns out white ends up taking the ko first. And there's there's this huge ko thread at A that I've marked. I didn't actually add the moves.
Upper left.
Upper left. Yeah. That's something like, it's going to be something like 70, 80 points. 80 points, I'd say.
It's not big enough.
But it's not big enough. Just look at that.
I don't even have to count it.
And that variation, black will play A, white will finish the ko. Black captures those stones, and white's going to answer the original ko thread on the left side of the board, and black's going to finish off white's upper side group. White's going to win by something like 50, 60 points in that.
This is starting to look like one of my games.
And so black can't do that. Black sacrifices the upper left corner. So this is the trade that white was sort of aiming at throughout this whole board. We can see that black has actually gained a little bit on the lower side in this variation. Yeah. It wasn't good enough.
Not enough. Because he was down, I think he said, by almost Comey,
he was close on the board. I think it's now black, and this is really the weird stuff that happens when white's winning anyway. Black plays a move that's not even forcing, and white takes it. And so that's sort of meaningless, but it has nothing to do with the win-loss result. So black's just trying to get some extra points somehow, but eventually gives up at this point.
Oh my God.
And at the end of the SDF file, I do think I put a number in to suggest what I think the difference was going to be.
Well, after our last game, our producer, Michael Wanek, said it was crazy. I can't wait to see what he comes up to describe this one, because this is beyond that. This is beyond that.
We're going to be seeing stuff like this happening in 50 games. That's why I want to do all 50 games, because they're just, all of them are very, very exciting.
Yeah.
And when I dig into them, I find good reasons for these moves that are astounding to me. And so it's a very educational experience.
Well, and for us as well, obviously, working them out with you. So again, thank you for doing all of the work on this. I mean, I wanted to say you're making it easy, except that it's not. I mean, I think these are definitely,
they're not easy games.
They're not easy games, but they're incredibly deep games, and I want to give a shout out to the Deepmind folks. I know that there were some folks who thought that, hey, just releasing 50 games was a little stingy, but it looks to me like it's plenty for us to work on.
All I could do is more like 500 games.
500 games. All right, we'll put the request in for you. 500.
It keeps me going for the rest of my life.
Exactly. All right. Well, once again, thank you, Michael, for really just an incredibly entertaining game, and I think this is going to be a great series for us. So thanks for watching, everybody, and hanging in there. I hope you're enjoying these and the SGF files, and we will see you next time. Thanks again, Michael.
Thank you.